So we were just talking in the last segment with a deputy sheriff, and he was talking about how when people were young, you know, they wanted to be law enforcement, they wanted to be firefighters, they wanted to be astronauts, they wanted to be pilots. Well, we're going to get a chance to visit with one right now. Mike Hatten joins us. He's a former commercial airline pilot. Mike, good to have you coming down the road with us.
It's great to have you too. And the part you don't know about me is when I was a kid, I wanted to be all of those things. And I ended up having an entire career as a state trooper in West Virginia. And I flew helicopters for them. And that's how I got my start flying.
Really? So, okay, you got to expound on that. You go from law enforcement to fly. I mean, you've lived the dream life for every kid that's watching this.
I've been absolutely charmed. I've been really fortunate. But I wouldn't have done it if I hadn't had great mentors who opened doors. And I stepped through the doors, but I had mentors that opened it. So I ended up a state trooper, and I was selected to be a founding member of a tactical team. It was, you would call it SWAT, but we didn't call it that. We called it something else. And I had a mentor. He was a retired brigadier general, was our superintendent, who asked about goals. I told him my goals were to learn to fly. He arranged a leave of absence for me like I never left. He arranged the testing for the military. I had to go take the testing and pass it, but I went. I flew helicopters. I came back and flew for them for a number of years after that. And that springboarded me to the airlines.
That is such a great story. All right. That isn't why we called. And you're sitting there saying, get to why you told me you wanted me on. It's this. The airline industry is so short of pilots right now. What's going on? You would have a much better perspective of that than I or most of the people watching.
Well, you're absolutely correct. It's very real. There are projected one consulting firm study that I saw predicts 12,000 pilots short in the USA by the end of this year, 2022, and about 20,000 worldwide. You got three problems going on. 83% of the regional carriers can't find pilots because and about 12% of the major airline carriers, commercial carriers, are having trouble recruiting pilots. They have less of a problem because they poach from the regional airlines. And the training time is pretty long, you know, once the spool up happens and starts. So the pandemic created a huge problem here for this shortage. The shortage was predicted. The pandemic kind of did away with it for a while, but the return to flying came so fast, much faster than the airlines predicted, that now they're having trouble keeping up.
Well, okay, sorry, Mike, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, but there are solutions for this, in my judgment, having lived in the training world at an airline for a long time, managing the training fleets. One, there are airlines that are proactive at shortening the time for training. They have gone through these programs and gotten them approved with the FAA, where they've started their own academies. Alaska, United, JetBlue was the first. And they hire these people in, they go through their program, they move right into the airline. The advantage in the way they're able to shorten this training safely is they follow this approved curriculum that's very standardized. Standardization is key to safety in the airlines. And when they step into the on the flight deck of an airline, they are immediately doing things the same way that their peers, that the more senior people who have been there for years are doing.
Okay. So, and that was my next question, which is how do we fix it? I'm in North Dakota, and the University of North Dakota has one of the top aviation programs in the nation, but we're not talking about 747s. We're talking about getting your start with your passion of flying. You also mentioned earlier mentors and what that meant to you to get that opportunity to do what you had dreamed of. Are we doing a good job between that? Are we doing a good job between that young man or young woman coming out of the University of North Dakota and then getting that opportunity that you had?
You know, I'm glad you mentioned the University of North Dakota, because one of my side duties when I was one of the senior managers at the airline was I managed and mentored the flight operations interns. They were at places like University of North Dakota, and I had several from there. If I'd have known you were going to bring it up, I would have worn my University of North Dakota sweatshirt that was given to me as a gift by one of my interns. That was one of the better interns that we had. Everybody that was an intern when I was working is now at the airline or at a different airline. That was one of my goals when I left, was to make sure they all got got hired somewhere and help contact my peers or write a letter. But I think we're doing a good job. You know, where we might not be doing as good a job is the person like me. You know, the person that grew up in West Virginia, started out in the country. I always had a desire to fly, but didn't know where to go, how to open the doors. And until I ran into a mentor, I never thought that dream would be a reality for me.
Okay. Mike, what about the airlines themselves? I know I don't have much time left that I get to visit with you, but are pilots being treated the way they should be treated? Are flight attendants being treated the way they should be treated, to the point where every morning you get up and you want to go to work?
I think the answer to that is yes. You know, in my view, I was always treated well. Now, that doesn't mean that when they're short, things like that, you don't work to the max, that you're safely allowed to work, that the FAA has prescribed. And, you know, temperatures get short now, especially with unruly passengers, a variety of problems there. I know they don't like being the policeman for the airline, but and the airlines are working on that. I know behind the scenes, my sources tell me that there's a lot of work being done to remedy that.
Okay. Well, that's good to hear. I've got people in my life that are flight attendants, and they loved it. They loved the lifestyle. They loved seeing as many different parts of the world that they got to see. But you're right. I'm glad you brought up the unruly passengers, because they don't like, you know, when it came to masks, they didn't like being the policeman. When it came to unruly passengers, it's like, put that above your nose. So I get it. I totally get it. Mike, we're going to call you again, because this topic is way bigger than the time we spent on it today. So I appreciate it.
Happy to speak with you, and thank you for the opportunity.
Yeah, next time wear your UND sweater, okay?
I'll wear my UND sweater, and I'll maybe even have my MikeHatten.com pin on the sweater.
Okay, there. I'm glad you got that out there. One more time, the website.
MikeHatten.com. It's really simple. You can, if you want to talk to me, you can get a hold of me there.